Is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Joining me, I guess I'm joining you because I wasn't here yesterday. Joining you, Slim Cliffy. How you doing?
You might not have been here on the show, but you're always here in spirit with us. Try to keep up the pace of your banter and your wit that you're always so good with. Doing well. Got crushed last night. Eventually, I'm going to learn my lesson. Stacking the Philadelphia Flyers. Last night certainly wasn't that night for me to learn that lesson, but eventually I'm going to learn it. They really didn't do anything. I stacked them with Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo is even worse. So things really didn't turn out too well last night. Buffalo back at it again here tonight. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Lots of injury news for today's slate, which I think could make things a little bit scrambly when lock hits or, warm-ups hit and all that. Nick Schmaltz back. Looks like Alexander Barkov, Gustav Forsling back. Mark Scheifele still not back for Winnipeg. Svechnikov is out for Carolina. Bowen Byram and Arturi Lehkonen are back for Colorado. There's a lot of injury news for a 7-game Wednesday slate, which is something that we don't usually get. So might lead to some low-end combinations for tonight, and I like slates like that. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, what is DraftKings doing with this Wednesday winger? Give me a fucking break. For real. Here's the thing. Right, I put a tweet out about it yesterday. I was out all day, cranky. Didn't get much sleep last night. Have COVID going through my house. So we got some shit to get off our chests here. We're sleeping in the basement. But yeah, no. There's some random guy in a windowless basement going, you know how we could make NHL DFS better? What if we make the 15 a 16 and we lower the top prize? It's not hard to figure out. If you make it a $10, you put $20,000 in the first place. It's $1,500 to max enter instead of $2,250. It's only logical that more people will max enter it. Not everyone has $2,250 lying around to max enter the 15. And then they wonder why the 5 always fills and then the 15 overlays. I don't know. That's just my rant. I like this slate. There's a lot of teams on a back-to-back. What? No. A lot of teams on a back-to-back. Lots of injuries or injury news. We're going to try to comb the desert and get it through. That's a Spaceballs reference for you young kids in the chat. We ain't found shit. But before we get into it, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support. It really means a lot. We hit a milestone yesterday with the commissions. It's truly amazing. Your guys' support is awesome. It supports us directly. It's been a long night. And supports us directly and helps us bring you guys all these free shows. We're here 5 or 6 days this week because of the schedule. Tomorrow and Saturday will be our last shows until February 6th though, because of the schedule and the All-Star break. So we're going to try to pump out some good content here. So let's get into this slate. I see some people no Spaceballs, probably north of 30, but Larry's north of 94. But he was childhood friends with Mel Brooks. Anyway, let's get into the slate. Arizona Coyotes with a 2.5 total. Heading into Florida, the Panthers have a 3.6. Barkov is back. I didn't see news.
They said that it's not one of those officially he's going to play 100% or whatever, but Paul Maurice said in his coach presser that he expects Barkov to play tonight. Barkov was at practice this morning and all that, so I assume he's back. But just watch for it because he didn't take line rushes with the team. So it's one of those, maybe something comes up in warmups and they just run back the same lineup or something. So just watch out for it.
Yeah, Barkov being back would be a big boost for the Panthers. Nick Schmaltz is back. Not sure where DFO is getting these lines. If that's maybe just best guessing here with Schmaltz being back, Bukestad, Keller, and Schmaltz. Like, that's never been a line. So we're both conjecturing that maybe, Jack McBain moves back to the top line with Schmaltz and Keller, and Bukestad goes between Michelli and Krause or something like that. I don't know. It's the first game of the night, so hopefully we'll get lines. Coyote's not the best, but usually the team account will tweet something out. If Barkov is back, both of these lines for Florida are 20,300. It is a very good power play spot. And with Barkov back, if he's back, it probably moves Bennett to the second power play unit. So both these lines will have 2 of the 3 on the top power play unit. Florida 2, 14.4% projected ownership. Florida 1, 5.9% projected ownership. I would imagine with the uncertainty with Barkov, maybe it comes in a little bit lower. I think in a nutshell, Florida 2 is the better play. You just know what you're going to get from them. But if you're looking to maybe get a lower owned combo and still get a really good power play matchup and a decent 5-on-5 matchup, I'm fine with Florida 1 here. On the Arizona side, I'm not sure exactly what the lines are going to look like, and I think that is important because I really don't want to stack a line that's going into the Barkov matchup if he's back, so I'm probably out on Arizona 1. I'll probably take a stab on, a Krause Genther line or Krause Michelli, something like that. One of their depth lines because, the Florida bottom 6 is okay, but nothing great. So I have to wait and see on lines, but this is a Florida game for me.
Yeah. Assuming Barkov's back, he'll be on the top line with Rodriguez and Reinhart. I think that's everybody's assumption. Luosterainen and Anton Lundell will go back down to the third line. It's actually kind of funny because Lundell and Luosterainen and Reinhart actually played pretty well with Barkov out. That's something I wasn't expecting. Lundell wasn't really having that good of a season. You and I are both fans of Luosterainen, so that's fine. But they had played well. But yeah, we assume they go back to their normal top 6. Barkov line goes out against the top line from Arizona. I think daily faceoff is going with Bukestad, Keller, Schmaltz top line because Keller and Bukestad play together in the last game with Matthias Michelli beside them. So I guess they're assuming, just move Michelli down, move Schmaltz into his spot, and the way they go. But yeah, before the injury, it was Jack McBain on the top line. With Jack McBain there, like the offense wasn't really that bad. Like McBain and Keller just under 60 minutes together, 2.5 expected goals, 68 shot attempts per 60. That's actually better than they had with a number of the centers that they've had on the top line since Barrett Hayton got hurt. That guy cannot come back soon enough. It's been a tough stretch for the top line since he got hurt. But yeah, I regardless of what the top line is for Arizona, I don't have a lot of interest for 2 reasons. One, Florida generally has a very good penalty kill. Like, yeah, they got lit up by Minnesota on the weekend. That's an anomaly. Their penalty kill is normally excellent. They do take a lot of penalties. Arizona does draw power plays. Like, for that reason, I wouldn't hate the idea of like a one-off Keller or something like that, just because, they can get 1 goal on the penalty kill. I just wouldn't expect like 4 or 5 or whatever like Minnesota did. If anything, it would be going down into the depth. Before Schmaltz got hurt, the second line was Michelli, Kerfoot, and Krause. Now, Kerfoot, I assume, stays on the top power play unit. I guess we'll find out with Schmaltz back. But Michelli and Kerfoot, like Michelli, when he's on the ice, like the team typically doesn't generate a ton of shot attempts. Like him and Krause and Bukestad have actually been good in that regard this season. But Michelli is a guy that he's a playmaker that relies on creating the most out of shots rather than creating a lot of shots. That's kind of the difference here. But 3 expected goals per 60 in over 85 minutes for Michelli and Kerfoot together. Some of that times with Keller now. But still, like they had shown something. Florida's second line had been really good defensively of late, especially with Barkov out. 1.8 expected goals against for that Florida second line in their last 10 games. Like, that's really, really good. I think with Arizona, like, if you want a one-off Krause, if you want a one-off Genther, because Genther's probably going to stay on the top power play unit. He was the guy that was up there with Keller, Schmaltz, and Kerfoot before the Schmaltz injury. So I think like a one-off Genther at his price would make sense. I just don't know if I'm going to be stacking anything on the Arizona side. The Florida side is where it's at. I agree with you for a number of reasons. One, no Connor Ingram in net. It's going to be Vejmelka. Ingram, like, legitimately has been one of the best goalies in the league over the last 2 years. Not massive samples. He doesn't have like 90 starts or something like that. But in the 2 seasons, he's been very, very good. And he's a big reason why Arizona's even in the playoff race to begin with. It's a step down going to Vejmelka. So that's number one. Number two, Arizona does take their fair share of penalties. They're at 3.7 minor penalties per game over the last couple months. League average is about 3.4, so they're worse than that. And the penalty kill itself is not very good. Florida's power play gets Barkov back. Either of the top lines, I think, are very much in play. Like, where they're both the same price, and the second line's coming in with a much higher top 2 stack, but where they're both the same price, like, I think I would just lean to the Florida top line instead. You get much less ownership. You probably get more minutes out of them. Barkov and Reinhart typically do play 20 to 21 minutes, with the second line a little bit less than that. I think I would just probably rather just power play stack Florida. I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't see, like, Sam Bennett can still score. Evan Rodriguez can still score, all that. I just think it's such a good power play spot for Florida. They're above average by drawing power plays per game by quite a bit. In fact, I think they're leading the league over the last 2 months in drawing minor penalties per game. Arizona does give up a lot, and the penalty kill isn't good beside that. So I'm fine with, like, taking off Rodriguez and putting in, Matthew Tkachuk or Carter Verhaeghe, making it an expensive power play stack and looking for fillers elsewhere. So I think more than anything, it's just stacking the Florida power play guys. If you want to go with one of the even strength lines, I would probably go with the second line with the top line, just because they are coming with considerably less ownership. But it's the Florida power. I think it's a Florida power play stack that I prefer out of this game entirely, and maybe some one-offs on the Arizona side.
As long as Barkov is back, I'm fine with the power play stack. Barkov is the key cog to that power play. The shots go up when he's there. The goals go up. The zone entries are easier. They set up easier. Barkov's out. I'm in on Florida too. More if Barkov's in, I agree with you with the power play stack. I just worry. I mean, like, the power play still can get there if Barkov's out. It's just just makes it that much tougher if they clear the zone. I don't know who's going to enter the zone. I think it's probably Verhaeghe or Montour. It's just not Barkov, but they still can get there. Just be aware, if you are stacking Florida, make sure to check for Barkov news. And if he's in, the analysis stands, and we go forward. Winnipeg Jets with a 2.9 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.2 total. The Jets are a mess here. Shifley's still out. Velarde's still out. They moved up Vladislav Nemestikov in between Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers. Adam Lowry went down to the third line center between Niederreiter and Appleton. Rick Bowness, I don't know what he did to the power play. It is, let me see if I can figure this out here. It is Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers, Alex Iafallo, Josh Morrissey, and then Neil Pionk.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most Rick Bowness thing of all time. Okay, you're missing Shifley and Velarde. It's not, you really don't want to power play stack the Jets tonight anyway, even though it's a great power play matchup. But going 3 forwards, 2D, one of them being Adam Lowry when you could put Cole Perfetti. Okay, I know you like Adam Lowry and he makes some sense, but my biggest qualm with that is the second defenseman when you have Cole Perfetti there to be on that top power play unit. It's a good power play spot. It's just I don't know, man, Nemestikov up on that top line. Like I guess like a Kyle Connor Ealer 2-man is fine, or one off Kyle Connor, or one off Adam Lowry, or I don't really want a one off Alex Iafallo because he's just kind of a vessel at this point. I want to get behind the Jets here. There's just nothing getting me going. That like if it was Lowry, Ehlers, Connor, fully correlated line going against the Leafs and their bad penalty kill and their bad goaltending and their bad blue line, I think it's fine. Like I guess Winnipeg won in a nutshell is fine. Vladislav Nemestikov does nothing for me. So you want to play some sort of Winnipeg power play stack? I guess that's fine. Like I'd probably just go Ehlers, Connor, Morrissey, something like that. If I was going that route. On the Leaf side, it's a pretty good power play spot too, and it's not Hellebuck and Net, who I absolutely what's the word? I said something about him not being under 10 DK points since December 7th, and he ended up with 1.4. Completely voodoo dolled the shit out of him, but he's not in net tonight. I think it's fine. Like Winnipeg's still a pretty decent defensive team, despite missing Scheifele and Velarde. Might actually help them defensively, to be honest. But I think going Matthews, Marner, Knees is fine. I'm not going to prioritize them by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a pretty decent power play spot. I think this game, basically after that rant, is MME for me.
So I'm going to start on the Winnipeg side. It's kind of like one of those cases of like, be careful what you wish for, because for years, I mean, you and I and a lot of other people have been clamoring for the Winnipeg Jets coaches to give Nikolai Ehlers, top power play time, a bigger role, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of finally happened over like the last 18 months. And unfortunately, even though he's gotten a bigger role, there still needs to be another Nikolai Ehlers, and now that's Cole Perfidi. Like this guy's just having a tremendous season. He was a really good rookie last year, got hurt. Season was cut short. He only played like 50 games. He's been really, really good again this year. The problem is like Winnipeg's not allowing any goals, so they're winning, 2-1, 3-1, 3-2 games like that. So there haven't been games where they've had to score 4, 5, 6 goals to win. And because of that, Cole Perfidi hasn't played 16 and a half minutes in a game in 18 straight games. He hasn't played second line minutes for 18 straight games. That is absolutely insane when you look at how good Cole Perfidi has been. But that's why, like, I'm not super stoked on Winnipeg, because, like, that third line of Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter, would you be surprised, other than Kyle Connor, if that line finished 3 of the top 5 in ice time for the Winnipeg Jets forwards here tonight? Like, I wouldn't be surprised in the least. They do, when Scheifele's healthy, they'll give Scheifele and Connor their ice time. Everybody else is just kind of jammed in the middle. It's kind of frustrating, but from their perspective, they're winning all those low scoring games. So why change anything? Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter, I'll bring them up. We have them listed as the third line. I feel pretty confident saying they're going to play more than Cole Perfidi and Dominic Toninato, which that's been completely glossed over. Dominic Toninato as Cole Perfidi center. Like, just put Cole Perfidi at center.
Dominic Toninato, all he does is skate around saying family. So it's just like, what role does he serve?
I mean, the guys in the NHL, like, no slander to him, but he's a 29-year-old with 35 career points, and he's Cole Perfidi center. Like, let's have a little sense here. But that Lowry, Nino, Appleton line, 2.9 expected goals since December 1st as a line. This is a line that has played together most of the season. Niederreiter seems like he's really going through right now. 4 straight games with 0 shots. Like, that's definitely not what you want to see. Maybe the Leafs goaltending will be the cure. Maybe seeing who's across from him in net will kind of entice him to shoot a little bit more, because it is Ilya Samsonov in net for Toronto here tonight. Samsonov has been arguably the worst goalie in the league this season. It's down there with Antti Raanta. I don't hate the idea of using that line. They're 10,800. I am a fan of Lowry. Niederreiter has been, an excellent two-way. He's like a perennial 20 goal guy, even though he doesn't get a lot of ice time, get a lot of power play time. If you want to leave Appleton off, that's fine. But I think even like a 2-minute like Niederreiter, Lowry makes sense. Once you get past that Toronto top line, there's really not a whole lot to speak of from a defensive perspective. There's certainly nothing to speak of for concern in net. I just, stacking Winnipeg and leaving off Connor and Ehlers and all those guys, like I don't have interest. I feel like this is going to be like a slanderous moment that's going to lead to a hat trick for somebody, but I have no interest in Perfidi. I follow Toninato. I don't feel like that line's going to stay together all game, and I certainly don't feel like they're going to get any more than like 13 or 14 minutes of ice time. So it's between the Kyle Connor line and the Niederreiter line. Like if you want to play Connor, Ehlers, Nemestikov, like I have no real qualms with playing them. Nemestikov and Ehlers and Perfidi, when they were together, 3.1 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. I think like Perfidi's like at this stage of his career is like a diet Kyle Connor. I think Perfidi in like 3 or 4 years could be the next Kyle Connor. So that's why I'm kind of using him as a proxy there. But their offense was better without Vladislav Nemestikov. Like that's the frustrating part. I wish they'd just move Perfidi up to the top line and use him as a center. So I'm going to be honest, like you're right. This is a good power play spot. So I would approach this in one of two ways. I think a one-off Kyle Connor makes a lot of sense. I think a one-off Nick Ehlers makes a lot of sense. If I'm going to stack anything, it's probably neither of their, quote, top two lines. It would probably be that Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton line. That's honestly the one line that I have confidence in will actually play all game together. I don't have confidence that the other two lines will stay together. Certainly not the Perfidi line. On the Toronto side, I don't know if anybody's looked at Toronto's second line numbers without Tyler Bertuzzi, and Bertuzzi's out for this game. I think his wife is having a baby, so he's there with her. Congrats to them. Over 100 minutes without Tyler Bertuzzi on the second line with Tavares and Nylander. Tavares and Nylander, 71 shot attempts against per 60 minutes, 2.6 expected goals against, 2.6 expected goals for. They just haven't been good, like at all. Tyler Bertuzzi is a guy that his playmaking numbers have taken a little bit of a dive this year, but still close to league average. And he's a guy that does a lot of the puck carrying for that line. Like obviously Nylander does. He's amongst the leaders on the team in that sense. But Bertuzzi does quite a bit as well. And like Holmberg can't replace that. Like what? Like no. So I have no interest in that Toronto second line as a stack. Like I think Nylander by himself, usually makes sense. But stacking them, no. I think if I'm stacking anything, it is the Toronto top line. It is Matthews, Marner, and Nyes. 225 minutes together this season, 3.3 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. Matthews and Marner are probably going to play over 20 minutes. Marner, 18.4 shot attempts per 60 over the last couple weeks. Starting to shoot the puck a little bit. I know that's almost that's a dangerous thing to say on this show. I feel like you might reach through the screen and punch me for saying it, but
no. Shooting Marner is the best Marner.
Yeah,
Marner is when he's not shooting.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So I actually don't mind the Toronto top line here. They're coming in with very little ownership, like 8%. Like if you can get a low owned like Toronto 1 on a 7-game slate at home of all things, I feel like that's the way to go. Winnipeg's penalty kill is a spot where they have been able to be had. Let's say, like at best, that penalty kill has been average basically the entire season. So I don't mind Matthews, Marner, and Nyes as a stack here. If this were like a 12 or 13 game slate, I'd look at Winnipeg's defense and Connor Hellebuck and all that, or it's Laurent Brossoit starting even at that. So you don't have to face Hellebuck. So I do kind of like Toronto 1 here. So for me, it's Toronto 1, the Adam Lowry line on the other side, and maybe some one-offs like Nylander or Connor or something like that.
Yeah, I think Brossoit is one of the better backups in the league, but like Hellebuck's been the front runner for the Vezina pretty much this whole season, so it is a pretty steep drop-off. So yeah, I agree. Carolina Hurricanes with a 2.8 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 3.2. Andrei Svechnikov still out. Carolina going Aho, Jarvis, Teravainen, Netchus, Drury, Nason. That line gets way more minutes than they should. Anyway, who else do we got here? Martin Stahl Fost. The Stahl line is back together, and Bunting and Jesperi Kotkaniemi on the fourth line. I mean, it is the fourth line because Nekjes, Drury, Nason play more, and the Stahl line plays more. So this is an interesting spot because you lose Svechnikov, but Jarvis moves up with Aho, and those two have very good numbers together. Jarvis's best numbers are with Aho since he got there, basically. They're on the power play together. Boston takes a lot of penalties. Boston's top line isn't very good defensively. Carolina's coming in with top line coming in with 1.2% projected ownership. I know the total isn't great, 2.8, but Winnipeg is 2.9. We just talked about how it's a decent spot. This is a decent spot, and I don't mind going to Carolina 1 here. These other lines I don't particularly love. They're very cheap, and you can use them as a filler, but I don't particularly love them. On the flip side, Boston one's up to 22,000 with Charlie Coyle on it. I don't know, man. Like Charlie Coyle, I like Charlie Coyle. He's not a top line center. That dude's a middle six grinder. I mean, like he's a nice player, but like he's not a top line center in the NHL. I'm just gonna, David Pastrnak always in play. That dude is in the matchup proof category now. He's just ridiculous. I don't know if I'd full stack Boston 1. Like, yeah, Carolina's goaltending has had issues, and they probably still do. But if I'm gonna spend up tonight, there's Colorado on the slate. There's Vancouver on the slate. I don't know if this is the spot, despite them being at home. Carolina does take a bunch of penalties, so I think Pastrnak is fine. I just don't want to spend 22,000 for a line going against Carolina with Charlie Coyle on it. That's just my thing. I think, a DeBrusk one-off is fine, something like that. But honestly, I think my favorite line in this game is Carolina top line.
I think I kind of agree with you here for a couple of reasons. One, Spencer Martin it looks like he's going to start for Carolina here tonight. They grabbed him off waivers from Columbus. I feel like when you're grabbing goalies off waivers from the Columbus Blue Jackets, that's like you're panicking. You know what I mean? Like you're really looking for a miracle here. Like I don't think Spencer Martin's a terrible goalie. And the thing is like to limit Boston to just a couple goals here, assuming like Carolina doesn't have Carolina has had bad defensive games that'll happen over the course of an 82-game season, but assuming they play like they normally do, Martin only has to save 88% of the shots or something like that to keep Boston to a couple goals, right? I think I'm kind of with you on the Carolina top line. Like, I don't like Teravainen in there. He's kind of like a pass bot a little bit. He can get the 3 assist totals and everything like that, but like he has 14 shots in 11 games since Christmas. Like he's just not shooting the puck very much. That top line doesn't have like tremendous offensive numbers for Carolina, 2.6 expected goals for as a unit so far this season. But you were mentioning Boston's top line and their defensive numbers. Like they're just bad. Like not like a little bit of a slide and not like, down for a couple games. 285 minutes together this season at 5-on-5 for Pastrnak and Marchand. 3 expected goals against per 60, 3.3 actual goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Those are like Montreal 2 numbers. And I'm being serious. Like those are bad defensive numbers. They're going to go into that Carolina top line. That's a matchup that favors the Carolina top line. And it's not to say that Boston can't score because like Spencer Martin's not a great goalie. He loses track of a couple pucks and Boston can put up 4 goals here tonight. Like that's not the issue. The issue is that you said it, there's no ownership coming in on Carolina's top line, 1.2% at 17,800. They're perfectly correlated on the top power play unit. Now, you and I have talked a lot about how the Carolina power play is not as good with Andrei Svechnikov off of it, and he's injured, obviously, so he's off of it. But it's still not terrible, right? Like terrible power plays. Like we've seen the Philadelphia Flyers and Pittsburgh Penguins at times be at like 3-4 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. without Svechnikov, at least Carolina is still at it was between 6.5 and 7 goals, I think, per 60 minutes on the PP. It's not good. It's, a little bit below league average, but it's not god awful. And you're right about Boston taking a lot of penalties, 3.9 times shorthanded or 3.9 minor penalties taken per game over the last 2 months. That's amongst the highest in the league. I think they're third now, just ahead of Minnesota. So they do take a lot of penalties. Carolina can get there on the power play. They're not super expensive, 17,800. You don't need 3 perfectly correlated goals. You don't need, 3 goals and a shot bonus or something like that. You can probably get there with a couple goals and a shot bonus on a slate this size. So I do like Carolina 1 here. Carolina 2, I consider the Martinook Stahl fast line the second line now. I'm going to be honest. I think they're going to end up second in ice time. I guess they're fine, but without Jarvis there, they've been having trouble scoring, which is something that they've had a lot of trouble scoring over the years. That's nothing new. So I think in that sense, in that situation, it'd be more one-offs, a one-off Martinook, I think would make sense. A one-off Michael Bunting, I guess, would make sense. But for a stack, it's the Carolina top line I like best. If I were to stack anything on the Boston side, it would probably be the Boston top line. They are expensive. I don't think Spencer Martin's a great goalie. So if he does have an off game, they can score 4 goals on 24 shots or something like that. That's not the big issue. The thing is I think there are just other expensive spots I would rather go to on the slate here tonight. Like you said, they are 22,000. You can stack Colorado for a little bit more. You can stack either of the Florida lines for a little bit less. You can drop down and go to Toronto. Vancouver's obviously on the slate later. I just think there are other expensive spots I would rather go to. So for Boston, I have no problem taking some one-offs. Obviously David Pastrnak is in play on every single slate. James Van Riemsdyk is on the top power play unit, and he actually has pretty good scoring chance creation numbers this season. It's been a nice rebound year for him, so I think he makes sense. Dan Heinen, he had a hat trick the other day, a couple games ago. I was looking at some scoring chance creation numbers this season. Now it's still really small samples for Heinen because he's been, playing in depth role mostly, but he's been truly amongst the elite this season. I'm talking up with Artemi Panarin and Nikita Kucherov elite. Now it is a small sample. I think he's played 40 games in a minimal role, and there's a lot more tracking to come. I don't expect him to stay there, but it's not hugely surprising that he's had some good offensive games. But it is Carolina 1 that I like best in this game by a good margin.
Yeah. Which is weird because I don't generally love Carolina. And I think why the power play drops off with Svechnikov out, when Svechnikov's in, they work him. He's the guy they work through. When he's out, Burns is just bombing away from the point, and it's just a big mess. But it is what it is with the Wookiee. I missed the super chat earlier. I'm on it now. We got there it is, a 1999 super chat from Akron. Creighton. Creighton. I'm just a mess, man. He's in the Discord. I haven't figured it out by now. I'm awful with names, good with nicknames, terrible with actual names. Thanks as always, fellas. Appreciate how much you and the Discord has improved my process. Discord's great, man. It's not just us. I learned some stuff. I get good advice in there. It's not just because I'm on this show and I have the green name in there that I can't learn from anyone else. It's always good to have differing opinions in there, and it's fun times in there. Thank you for the super chat. Get in the Discord. And speaking of that, if you do want to get in there and you want to go through the affiliate link which supports us directly, click that link. You get player and ownership projections. You get the top stacks tools. You get lines combinations, and you get access to that Discord where it has improved his process. It has improved my process. It has improved a lot of people's process. Now, if you're already a member, thank you. But if you're also looking to sign up for something else, you can do it through the link. You can do NBA, you can do PGA, you can do MMA. I'm going to have weekly MMA content. There's no MMA this weekend, but there will be next weekend without NFL. So not going to be much to do in the DFS land. It's also the NHL All-Star break. So if you are a DFS junkie, which I would assume most of you are, look for my MMA content coming out on my Twitter and the Stochastic YouTube middle of next week. But yeah, you can click that link that we put into chat. Any membership, any sport supports us directly. Thank you again for the super chat. And let's continue. Washington Capitals. 2.4 total. Heading into Colorado, the Avs have a 3.6. Washington played last night. They lost. Shocker. Looks like Arturi Lekkonen's going to be back. He's going to slot in on the third line and the second power play unit. So looks like Ross Colton will remain power play one for at least the start of tonight. Colorado won $900 more expensive than Boston won. They're getting more ownership. Like Jonathan Drouin, man. Like, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan. I'd much rather just go like McKinnon, Ranton, and Colton than like McKinnon, Ranton, and Drouin. I think that's viable. This power play just runs everybody over. I think you could go regular Colorado one. Maybe I'm just an idiot. And, Drouin is your guy. That's fine. I think the second line is perfectly fine too. They're 10,200. The problem is they're coming in wildly over leverage. So if you do use them, just be aware of, you're probably using the chalkiest filler line on the night. They're one of the chalkier projected lines as a whole of the night. So I don't know, just be aware there. Arturi Lekkonen's an interesting one-off here because if this game's close, I have a hard time imagining he doesn't A, move up, or B, end up on the top power play unit.
Just real quick, just to cut in, this is a guy that's playing his forwards 30 minutes a night sometimes because half their forwards aren't doing anything. And we really are supposed to believe that he's going to monitor Lekkonen's minutes tonight if this is anywhere a close game. I'm not buying that in the slightest.
Drouin will be in Manitoba by the second period if they're losing this game. So I think Lekkonen's a really interesting play here tonight. On the Washington side, I don't know, man. I guess Ovechkin, Oshie, McMichael is okay. If they happen to get into your MME mix, fine. But I'm not running out to play the Caps tonight.
No, we are not running out to play the Caps tonight. One thing with the Caps is what are their lines going to be? They broke up their lines by the middle of the first period last night because they got down 2-0 in the first 5 minutes. They honestly broke up their lines before the 10-minute mark of the first period. If you look at what they tried to keep together, they tried to keep Kuznetsov and Mantha together through the game. They tried to keep Strome and Pacioretty together through the game. Ovechkin was basically moved all over the place. He played some with Strome and Oshie. He played some towards the end with Connor McMichael. He was probably on a line with Nick Dowd at some point, like he had been the game before. Washington's just not a very good team. That's just kind of what it boils down to. What's worse is all their expensive top guys are all having god-awful years. Ovechkin has been terrible. Kuznetsov has been terrible. Oshie, until this recent 10-game run, had been terrible. Tom Wilson hasn't really done a whole lot of late either. I think he has 1 assist in his last 15 games or something like that, with a couple goals, and he's not shooting a whole lot either. That's kind of the problem here, in that if every guy on the team was making $1 million and one of them wasn't chasing, the all-time goals record, I suspect that you would see Dylan Strome and Max Pacioretty skating 20 minutes a night, and that you would see Evgeny Kuznetsov and Alex Ovechkin skating 12. But you can't do that. with the reputations that the guys have. So on the good side, like Strome and Pacioretty seem to have found some chemistry, assuming that they're together. They were together for most of the game yesterday. Like I said, like every line was broken up. Like it's tough to gauge what they're going to go with. But Strome and Pacioretty, 3.3 expected goals, 2.6 actual goals per 60 in their 110 minutes together since Pacioretty came back. Pacioretty has 17 shots on goal in his last 5 games. Now, he's shooting 4.3% in that time, but he's not a guy that typically has high shooting percentages anyway. Like he's a guy that scored through volume. So like, I don't hate the idea of like a one-off Pacioretty. Like there's, Colorado's not a bad defensive team whatsoever, but Pacioretty's only 5,100. It's not that bad. So I don't mind like one-offing him. Alexei Protas was moved up to skate with them at times. He's only 2,700. I imagine he'll probably have to get some ice time here tonight, but there's nothing that I'm running out to stack on the Washington side. On the Colorado side, like I don't like Drouin might stay there just because McKinnon and Rantanen are good enough to carry him. I think the guy that might lose his role to Lehkonen is Miles Wood, honestly. Wood has had some injuries. They moved him around the lineup. It's been Colton and O'Connor that have been able to carry that line. The last 110 minutes for that Colorado second line, 3.5 expected goals for, 3 expected goals against per 60 minutes. 3.2 goals against per 60. Like that Colorado second line has struggled. That's why I'm kind of interested in Pacioretty and Strome here, because I think McKinnon's going to go out against McKinnon plays so much that he matches up against everybody eventually. Like that's kind of the way that works. But I think for the most part, he'll go out against Ovechkin and whomever he skates with. And I think that frees up Pacioretty to kind of skate against what I don't think is very good, at least not a good second line with Miles Wood there. But I think Lehkonen probably moves up the lineup pretty quickly, and that'll really stabilize that line. So, I think Colorado 1 is certainly in play for the main reason that Washington's penalty kill has been on a slide. I don't think Ross Colton is long for the top power play unit. That power play unit has genuinely been worse basically across the board, no matter what stats you look at with Ross Colton there than without. I can't imagine it's going to be very long. It might honestly be like one power play and then Lehkonen's back on the top unit. So I honestly don't even hate the idea of doing like a McKinnon, Rantanen, Lehkonen stack. Like I'm going to be honest, because I don't think it's going to be very long. I don't think he takes Drouin's spot on the even strength line, but I think he takes Colton's spot on the top power play unit. And Washington's penalty kill has been getting worse. So I do like Colorado 1. I might not necessarily just stack them with Drouin. I think you can even take Rantanen out and put Lehkonen in, and just to make it a cheaper stack if you want. But yeah, I really do like Colorado 1 in this matchup. Like if they end up going out against Kuznetsov and Ovechkin or McMichael and Ovechkin or whatever, like they should be able to roll right over them. So there is a fair bit of ownership coming in on that line, as you mentioned, 17%. But like I said, I think you can mix it up with Artturi Lehkonen, and like even if it's a 20% line, a 20% line on a 7-game slate at home against Washington, I think that's perfectly fine. So yeah, it's Colorado 1 for me. Maybe add Lehkonen in for a power play, what could end up being a power play stacking to avoid a super over-owned Ross Colton, and then maybe like a Pacioretty one off on Washington side, and that's about it.
Your point about Miles Wood is a good one, because when he came back, he lost his role on that line to Joel Kiviranta. So, like, if you can lose your role to Joel Kiviranta, you will most certainly lose your role to Artturi Lehkonen. So,
yeah,
big Joel Kiviranta fan. 4 goals against Colorado. Now he's playing for him. But anyway, let's talk about this game that I wish just fell into a sinkhole and wasn't on the slate. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.2 total heading into Chicago. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.2 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 3.3. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's funny because none of the Chicago lines, none of them have a top stack percentage higher than 0.8%.
And I was looking at that. I think was it yesterday? No, it was Monday's show. All 4 lines had a top stack percentage combined of like 1.2% or something like that.
Yeah, that's what this is. The Chicago 4 has a 0.0% chance of being a top 2 stack. The Boris Kachuk disrespect, but I'm out on Chicago. Like, there's nothing I want to do there. I can't even pretend and lie to you guys and say, like, yeah, let me play Rem Pitlick. Like, no, I'd rather light my hair on fire. I have 3 hairs, but I would light them on fire for you. This is a Seattle game, and I'm not loving the ownership here. Obviously, Seattle lines are so cheap. They're a filler line, and they fit with pretty much anybody. So 16% projected for the McCann, Eberle, Tatar line. You're 12,100. Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, Ty Cartier, 12,500, coming in with 9% projected ownership. Even the Wenberg line with Schwartz and Burakovsky coming in with 12.3% projected ownership. Holy. I think, if anything, I'm going to Tolvanen, Bjorkstrand, Cartier. And, yeah, do I want to play them at 9% with a 2.6% top 2 stack? Not really. But I'd rather play them than 16% McCann, Eberle, Tatar, 12% Alex Wenberg. Like, Jake, earmuffs. He sucks for DFS. So, I'm in on the guys who actually can do stuff for DFS. Ty Cartier shoots the puck. Tolvanen and Bjorkstrand are on power play 2 or power play 1A, 1B. I don't know. Whatever unit Dunn is on is probably a little bit better. But they're across 19 different lines. So, and it's not even in a good power play spot. So, I don't love this game, but Seattle has a big total, and all these lines are super cheap. So, I'll eat the lowest ownership of the high ownership and go Cartier, Tolvanen, and Bjorkstrand.
So, the thing that sucks about this is, that Chicago's second line, you and I talk about it quite a bit. That Dickinson line is actually pretty good defensively. That's the one thing that they have that you want to try to avoid. What sucks is that the Wenberg line usually takes top line competition when they're at home, and that means that they're going to avoid that really good defensive line from Chicago. So it is the one Seattle line that is, probably guaranteed to be in a good 5-on-5 matchup all game long. What kind of sucks about that is that Schwartz and Burakovsky, that is one duo. Typically Seattle's been able to mix and match their lines because everybody's basically played pretty well with everybody else. But Schwartz and Burakovsky is one pairing that just has not played well either this season or last season. 1.4 expected goals for per 60 minutes together this season. Last season wasn't that much higher. That's just terrible offensive generation. Wenberg might actually play 20, 21 minutes, and then Schwartz and Burakovsky play 14 or 15. That's just kind of the way that this team runs. So, oh my God. I'm not super stoked to stack them against Chicago. I'm going to be honest, because Chicago does have that one really good defensive line, which I think is going to eat up that McCann, Eberle, Tatar line, right? And so I think I'm out on Eberle, Tatar, and Tatar. Did I call him Tatan instead of McCann? I think so.
Listen, I've done way worse.
Yeah, but anyways, the top line, they've been good. 2.9 goals, 3 expected goals with McCann there, but they were better with Matty Beniers. If you want me to play them at 16%, that's just such an easy pass for me. I think I'm with you on Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, and Cartier. Those guys will get bottom 6 matchups. All 3 guys really like to shoot. It kind of makes me worried about who's actually going to pass the puck. But honestly, against the Chicago bottom 6, I really don't care. That you should be able to pass it around anybody that they're on the ice against. They're coming in with the lowest ownership. They are actually the most expensive line that Seattle has, so I think that's why they're coming in with the lowest ownership. But I think they're also the line that makes the most sense. I don't know if I would three-man stack anything from Seattle. But a two-man of Bjorkstrand, Cartier, Tolvanen, and Cartier, something like that, I think makes a lot of sense. So that's where I am. on the Seattle side. Like on the Chicago side, I honestly think the only thing I like on the entire team is like a Colin Blackwell one-off.
Rangers legend, Captain Colin Blackwell.
He's at least shooting the puck. 31 shots in his last 11 games, right? Only had one shot in his last game out of the 31 or 32 that they generated against Vancouver. But he's on a line that actually outplays the opponent. Like, they don't play to a high pace, but he's the one that takes a lot of the shots that they do generate. It's a terrible matchup against Seattle. Seattle's really, really good defensively, and they don't take any penalties. Not that Chicago's power play is anything, but I think like a one-off Colin Blackwell is basically the only thing I really like on that team.
Yeah, I mean, he shoots the puck. That's what he does. No matter where he's at, he shoots the puck. So you can, I mean, would I do it in single entry? No, but like if you have a one-off Colin Blackwell somewhere, it's fine. He might get you the shot bonus or something. I don't know. Let's talk about the Blues. Why are we talking about the Blues? St. Louis Blues with a 2.7 total. Heading into Vancouver, the Canucks have a 3.8. Blues played last night. They beat the Flames. They beat the Pilot Lights. At least I'll say this, right? We were right in our analysis with Vancouver one the other day. They didn't do shit. They're 24,000 tonight. Blues on the back-to-back. It's kind of a similar scenario, right? The Blues don't take a ton of penalties. The thing is, like the Blues suck. And, I mean, I like Joel Hofer, and he's probably going to be starting tonight. I like him better than Binnington. That's not really – I like a lot of things more than Binnington. I think Vancouver one's in play for me here tonight, just for this reason. 21.6% top two stack, 3.1% projected ownership. That ownership is very enticing on the slate because there's chalk Colorado. You have Boston with high-ish ownership. Maybe they get broken up tonight. Oh, I see as someone said that in chat. That's something to keep your eye on. But I don't know, man. If they get broken up, that could be interesting because like a JT Miller Besser line not against St. Louis one could be a spicy meatball. But I don't know, man. That's not French. I don't know. But I guess they're like they have a monster total, and they have very good positive leverage. For that reason, I'm in on them. St. Louis won. Not going up against Demko is enticing. They're 17-3 with 5% projected ownership. I think if you come down to the nuts and bolts of it, I'd rather play Carolina 1 in that price range, but I don't mind St. Louis 1 here. I'll never mind St. Louis 1 as long as it's Kyrie Thomas Buchnevich. So again, I'm conflicted with Van 1, but I think they're a good GPP play.
Yeah. I kind of wish that we had some news on exactly what Vancouver would be going with. I think it makes sense to break them up in my mind. Because that top line is great. The Bluger line is pretty good. And then after that, you don't have a lot. And like, I don't think you should necessarily rely on Teddy Bluger and Dakota Joshua as your second line. If you want to be a serious Stanley Cup contender, like, let's be honest here. The other part of it is St. Louis in town. Like St. Louis has one good defensive line, and it's the top line, right? Like the Buchnevich, Thomas, Kyrou line has typically been pretty good defensively since they got their coach. I wanted to look how they've done after like they had a hot start, so I excluded their 5 games under their new coach. So just their last 12 games, 2.5 expected goals against, 0.5 actual goals against. Like obviously that goals against will actually go up, but only 2.5 expected goals against. Like that's league average. It's not bad. And you're right. St. Louis doesn't take a lot of penalties. They're below average over the last 2 months in that sense. The Vancouver power play started the season with 21 goals from the top power play unit in 22 games. Their last 25 games, they have 12. And it's not just a shoot, it is a shooting percentage problem a little bit, but a lot of it is shot generation. They just don't create a ton. St. Louis's penalty kill, not that great. But, if the Lotto line were together, which again, it doesn't look like they're going to be, if the Lotto line were together, then they'd be going into a tough-ish 5-on-5 matchup, and the power play have been on a slide. I think there would be reasons to not play them. The problem is what else do you play if they are broken up? Because I would have interest in a second line going into St. Louis 2 and going into St. Louis 3. If we knew the top line was going to be McKayev, Pettersson, and Lafferty or something like that, and that they were going to be going out against St. Louis 1, and then that would free up Miller and Besser and Joshua or anybody to go up against the second and third lines for St. Louis, I'd be into that. But we don't even know if that's for sure. Thankfully, there are a lot of late games. Not a lot. There are 3 late games here tonight. There are some expensive players as well, from not necessarily from St. Louis, but certainly from Buffalo, where if you need to make a swap, you can do it. So I think there are ways to kind of work around your lineup to fit in, if you want to put Dakota Joshua with Miller and Besser. I think if they break up the lines, then Miller and Besser are going to stay together because that's where they were earlier this season, right? It's just figuring out who the third winger is going to be. If you want to stack Vancouver and leave Pettersson off, I think you can do that. Because if they do break them up again, that's probably going to leave Besser and Besser and Miller together. I'm going to be honest. I think I have more interest in a Miller Besser 2-man, or just one-offing Elias Pettersson or one-offing Besser or something like that than stacking the entire top line or the old top line. I just think there are going to be too many moving pieces. And if you stack a $24,000 line and they're all broken up, you're kind of boned, because then you're forced to go play Buffalo. You're probably going to have to leave salary on the table unless you have all late defensemen or something like that. So I'm going to be honest. I think it's St. Louis I'd rather play here tonight. That St. Louis top line has been really, really good offensively. 3 expected goals per 60 in those last 12 games, but they're shooting 6.7%. Vancouver typically does the Vancouver top line, at least the old one, the Lotto line, did have bad defensive numbers, and they were starting to get scored against. And I think that's why, other than Chicago, but Chicago never scores. So I think that's why you're going to be seeing them broken up. But still, 3 expected goals per 60 in their last 12. Pavel Buchnevich, 37 shots in those last 12. They had been generating a lot. And St. Louis 1 is not coming in with that much ownership, under 5%. This is a perfectly correlated top line that's been creating a lot of offense, coming in with positive leverage and under 5% ownership. I get it's back-to-back on the road. Vancouver's typically been very good defensively, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's still just a 7-game slate, and this is still a very skilled line. So I'm going to be honest. I think the line that I like best here tonight is St. Louis 1. If I were to stack anything from Vancouver, it would probably be a Miller Besser 2-man. If you want to dip down and go play that Bluger line, I think, a Bluger Garland 2-man or Garland Joshua 2-man or something. I don't think I would full stack them, but I think 2-manning them is something that I would have interest in, because I feel pretty confident they're gonna see a lot of middle 6, even bottom 6 matchups from St. Louis, and St. Louis can be had there.
Yeah, I agree with you there with Miller or Besser, just because if they are broken up, they'll stick together and they'll probably see the Shen matchup, which is just a very advantageous matchup there. So you probably get a nice low-owned combo there in a very good 5-on-5 spot if it happens. Maybe that's good that we don't have news on it, and you can take a stab hoping it happens. I don't know. But they'll probably be together regardless of what the lines are, so you at least have that going for you. Buffalo Sabres with a 2.7 total heading into LA. The Kings have a 3.7. Whew. I power play stacked the Sabres last night. That was fun. I think Tuck had a straight up bagel. Questions with the Sabres here because they completely just blew up their lines. People got benched. It was a mess. They looked awful against the Ducks. I don't know, man. Like, if you want to take a stab on Thompson, Skinner, Tuck, 19-6 coming in 1.3% projected. Can't play any worse than they did last night. And Kings goaltending, not the best. Kings are a pretty good defensive team, though, so I don't mind it in 20 max or 110 max, whatever that Wednesday winger is. I guess the 5 is 150 max. So I don't mind taking a stab here and there on Buffalo 1, not doing it in 1 to 3. The depth, I don't know, man, because guys got benched. Quinn got benched. Peterka got benched. I got benched for playing him. Cliffy got benched for playing him.
What do you mean bench?
It's just an expression, Avery. So I need to see the lines. And even then, like, I don't have faith in the coach to play them more than 14, 15 minutes. I'm on the Kings here. I think I'm just going to go back to the Kings top line until they either make me file Chapter 11 or they actually do something. I'm not sure which is going to come first, but Kempe, Kopitar, Pierre-Luc Dubois, 16-3 coming in at 9.4% projected ownership, a little bit of negative leverage. That more Fiala Janot line coming in at 14.5% projected. I don't really fear anything coming back at me from Buffalo, so matchups aren't a concern there. As you know, I'm a Kempe guy, so that's why I like that line. I have no qualms, no issue, no problems if you want to go to LA2 here. They have a higher top 2 stack. They do have higher ownership, but there's plenty of ways to get different. So LA1, LA2 for me. I don't mind taking a stab on Buffalo 1 in MMA.
Yeah, I was looking at Buffalo's back-to-backs earlier. I think they're 1-5 on the second game of a back-to-back this season, and the only game they won was against Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken. Yesterday on the show, I said the Buffalo is a frustrating team because, like, once every 5 games, they'll have a really, really good game that shows how good this team can be. And, like, if you look through Buffalo's season, they've had a lot of, like, what you would call signature wins. They beat Colorado 4-0. They beat Philadelphia 5-2. They beat Toronto 6-4. They beat the New York Rangers twice, I think. They beat Pittsburgh. Like, this is not a team. And, you know, there are games where they put up a lot of goals. They put up 5 goals in Vegas. They put up 9 goals against Toronto. Like, Toronto goaltending and all that. But still, like, you know, this is a team that has beat the brains out of opponents before. And that's what makes them so frustrating, is that you see how good they can be once in a while, and then they just suck for 2 weeks. Back-to-back on the road is kind of a tough spot. You know, assuming Quinton Byfield, like, we'll see what the top. Quinton Byfield got moved back up to the top line. The Kings coach and Pierre-Luc Dubois are already starting, or Todd McClellan, Pierre-Luc Dubois are already starting to not get along, it appears. The projected lineup I saw from a Kings writer I follow had Dubois remaining on the top line. I don't think that, like, I talked about it yesterday on the show, I don't think that really helps them defensively, or was it maybe it was Monday's show. I don't think that helps them defensively. It might help them offensively, but it won't help them defensively. And I'm wondering how much of Los Angeles' struggles just doesn't come down to the defensemen. Like, Mikey Henderson is not having a good season. I think Drew Doughty is. Mikey Anderson certainly is not. If you look at the expected goals against going back just their last 20 games, it's like 2.7 expected goals against, thereabouts. That's well below average. And the Buffalo top line's not coming in with that much ownership, 1.3% ownership. Like, I know it's back-to-back on the road, but it's like it is a 1% line that does have a lot of high upside. I have a little bit of interest in Buffalo 1. Like, if I knew for sure that Quinn, Cousins, and Peterka were together, I would have interest in that as like a cheap depth stack. We don't know what the Buffalo lines are going to be like. They're all relatively around the same price, so I think you can probably get away with it. Because Cousins and Casey Middlestat are within $300 of each other. Peterka and Quinn are within 600, and then the rest of the guys are all like 28 to 36. Like, I think you can get away with late stacking, but obviously you could be kind of boned because it is a 10:30 Eastern start. It is the very last game of the slate. They do have good offensive numbers together, but it is the Los Angeles side that I like best here. Through all of Los Angeles' struggles, the second line has stayed very good. If you do want to go with the lower owned top line, no issue with that. I think I would rather just go with the line that's been playing well and, play the best line. Our boss, Jake Harry, always says. Los Angeles, too, their last 10 games, 3.3 expected goals for, 1.8 against. They're still steamrolling. It's just every other line isn't really doing a whole lot. Trevor Moore, 38 shots in his last 10 games. Kevin Fiala, he's really tremendous playmaking numbers, solid shot rates. Even Danault has 20 shots over his last 10 games played, so he's chipping in a little bit offensively, trying to get on the scoreboard. I don't mind LA2 here. Like, Buffalo, like their middle six defense does not concern me in the slightest, especially if Quinn and Peterka are together. So LA2 for me is my favorite line in this game, but I am considering Buffalo 1 as a really low on top stack because they're a lot cheaper, than stacking Vancouver or something like that. So, and I don't think it's like necessarily a terrible matchup. And, they are cheap enough where you don't need like 4 goals from them, but it is Los Angeles 2 I prefer here.
Maybe I'll have to give another look to the old LA2. I'm just a Kempe slappy. Everyone knows that, but yeah.
I get it.
He's been in a slump. Slumping.
Well, good thing he's facing the Buffalo Slump Busters here tonight.
Yeah. You know what would help the Kings offense? And I don't mean to, stir some pots here, is unintentional pot stirring. Play Clark and Spence in the same lineup.
Just take Englund out. Like, it's really not that hard. Like, there's no way that taking Englund out of that lineup can make them worse. I don't see it because, if you want to have like a physical defenseman or whatever, like what the hell are Gavrikov, Roy, Doughty, and Mikey Anderson there for? Not to play a more gritty style. Like, they can't score. Play the guys that can help you score. Like, it's frustrating because it looks like Brant Clark is going to be scratched again here tonight. Whatever, man.
Anyway, talk about some defensemen. What a transition. That's why we get paid the big bucks. That was not on purpose. That was lack of caffeine and sleep. Cal McCarr, top of the board. I really like McCarr here tonight. Expensive to fit in with Colorado, just put it that way. Rasmus Dahlin, I think is fine. Like, he's just going to play massive minutes, and maybe he's just going to do what he does and be like, you know what, this team sucks. Let me do it myself. Don't mind him for $7K. Riley is an interesting one. Like, he's actually had a good season. I'll shut up about how Riley sucks, and he's actually had a good season.
That's my cousin's name.
It's your cousin's name. So, yeah, play Riley. I guess, like, Burns is fine at 5,700. I just don't love goalies and defensemen. I just don't. What are you liking?
I mean, yeah, Cale McCarr is number 1 on my list. He's number 1 by projections as well. So, like, that's not a huge surprise. I don't mind Charlie McAvoy here. I'm going to be honest. Carolina, like, we were talking about Spencer Martin. I think he's an upgrade on Antti Raanta, but being an upgrade on Antti Raanta isn't really saying a whole lot. And, the Boston power play has been good. McAvoy can certainly block shots, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's fine to use here tonight. Brandon Montour, like, it looks like he's starting to come alive. He's a guy that's been kind of snake bit by production, but I've been looking at, like, scoring chance creation, zone entries, and those things that he's usually excels at, and they've all been pretty good. I just got to think it's been a little bit of like a bad luck factor for him. He's been, producing more of late. I really do like Brandon Montour here. Josh Morrissey going into Toronto. I think he's in play. Like if the Winnipeg power play can do anything against what's not been a good Toronto penalty kill, I think Morrissey certainly gets involved. So I don't mind Montour or Morrissey either. Like Colton Parayko, he's been blocking and shooting a little bit, and 4,900 on DK I think is cheap enough to play them. I just don't like particularly love the matchup for him where he's not on the top power play unit. You kind of want him to be with Buchnevich and those guys, but I don't mind him. For cheaper guys, Bowen Byram is back for Colorado. Bowen Byram, like he's not a guy that stuffs the peripherals. And he had a tough start to the season, but he's generally been a very good offensive defenseman for his career. And down at 3K, I think it's worth finding out if he was playing injured earlier in the season. And that's why some of his numbers suffered and he just needed a little bit of time off. Like I think he even said it in an interview that he knew he wasn't playing well and that he thinks this is going to be like a bit of a reset for him. Like players say that stuff, but I always wonder if players aren't playing injured and then come back better because they're healthy, because they take a few weeks off. Matthias Samuelsson for Buffalo, he's probably going to have to block a lot of shots. TJ Brody, same thing for Toronto. He might have to block a few shots. Juuso Välimäki is probably going to have to play minutes for Arizona here tonight because Matt Dumba's out. Obviously, they have Troy Stetcher still injured. So either him or Kesselring might have to get a jump in minutes here. Jordan Spence, 2,600, like him, always will. Eventually, Los Angeles has to give him more minutes, right? Like certainly, eventually, probably. God help us if they don't.
Inhale the coke.
Exactly. Yeah. Dmitry Orlov, 2,900. Don't mind him if you need a sub 3K defenseman either.
Yeah. I guess I guess Jensen's fine. He's not going to play 20, 21 minutes. He'll play like 17, 18, 19 at 2,600. He's going to need to block some shots too. So don't mind that. Not a huge fan, but if you aren't a Spence guy or you're stacking the Kings and you need a not Kings defenseman that's cheap, I don't mind Jensen. Let's talk about some goalies here. Rather not, but top of the board, Joey Decord, the Bob, and Georgiev, 85, 84, 83. I think like if I'm spending up there, it's probably Georgiev. I think anyone against Carolina is fine. I don't know whose turn in the rotation it is, either Olmark or Swayman. They're fine. Like, there's nothing cheap that really stands out. Like, if you really want to get feisty, you can go Lindgren. I think Joel Hofer would be the guy for me down cheap. I wish it was Mrazek. It's Soderblom tonight, which kind of dampens the mood. I guess Vermelka's fine too, but like when you're getting down here, you just got to hope for the shot bonus and not 19 goals given up.
Yeah, it does look like it's going to be Allmark for Boston. Well, I mean, it'd be his turn anyway. 7,900, I think that's pretty reasonable for him, especially where Carolina's power play shouldn't be as good without Andrei Svechnikov there. Maybe he gets some easier shots. I do like Allmark here tonight. Laurent Brossoit, you brought him up. I think he's fine for 7,400. I just kind of worry about shot volume because Winnipeg does usually try to tighten it down, and it's like, if Matthew sneaks a couple by him or something like that, maybe he only saves like 2 out of 24. Could be fine. The guy that I was kind of looking towards is Connor Ingram, but he's not starting. Devin Levi is another cheap guy that stood out to me. I know he's not had a good season, but Los Angeles has really had trouble scoring, and they're still generating shots. So I don't mind Devin Levi if you want to pay all the way down. Like if you're looking for shutout equity, I think it might end up being Grubauer going for Seattle here tonight. I didn't see any official confirmation yet, but I know he was taken off injured reserve, so I'm assuming he's back. Like he's expensive, but if there's any goalie with shutout equity, it's got to be Grubauer here tonight against Chicago. So that's about where I stand. I think Allmark or Levi are the two guys that I'm really looking towards. I think if you want to play Grubauer and hope for the shutout, I think that's fine.
Yeah, the moral of that story is goalies suck. If you like them, if you like a certain one, you play them. Like I wish like I could give you better analysis, but like anything can happen with goalies. They're weird creatures. They're not human. You go if you're spending down, you look for the volume. You're spending up, you're looking for the shutout equity. That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I love shot volume. Hasn't worked out for me recently. I was saying in the Discord last night, I've hit the part of the season where I hit my stacks and my goalies just melt me away. And that is the most frustrating part of the season because I'd rather have my stacks do nothing and pick goalie right. It's just like, I don't know. Picking goalie wrong is the most tilting part about NHL DFS, and it's not close. And I wish there was a secret formula to it. Mike's secret stuff for Bugs Bunny or whatever, but it's just not there.
Bugs
Like
Bunny?
if you like a goalie, you play him, and if you're bi-monthly deposit Frostback, I feel your pain because you go through this all day, every day. You looking for your hat trick pick?
Somebody going against a goalie that's not had a very good season. I think he's going to bust out of his slump here tonight. I'm going with El Nino Niederreiter.
El Nino. That reminds me of that Saturday Night Live skit with Chris Farley. I am El Nino. I am going with Iron Man's assistant, Mr. Jarvis, Seth Jarvis.
I like it.
We will be back tomorrow and Saturday. Those are the last two shows until February 6th because of the NHL All-Star break. So make sure to smash that like on the way out. If you're looking to go premium, click that link in the chat. Any sport, any membership. The little man wants to give some words of encouragement on the way out.
I'm starting my own YouTube channel, so whenever I make it, can you please subscribe to it?
I will drop your YouTube channel link in the chat so you can subscribe to Avery's content. You'll see my goofy ass in there. And yeah, we'll do that. El Nino is Spanish for the Nino, but we'll be back tomorrow. I got him PR trained. But yeah, we'll see you tomorrow and good luck, everybody.
Good luck tonight, everyone.